Welcome to the Principal Podcast, where we talk about how the best professional services firms grow. Whether you're looking to scale your firm or learn from the stories of founders and leaders who've done it, you're in the right place. Join us as we interview the best leaders in professional services. Let's get on with the show.
Welcome to Consulting Leaders Podcast, a place where we talk about the business of consulting. Whether you're looking to grow your own practice or learn from the stories of leaders in consulting, you're in the right place. I'm your host, John Degnan. Join me as we talk to the best consultants in their niche. Today we have one of them, Andy Bounds, one of the UK's leading sales trainers, known for helping organizations generate more sales faster, often delivering measurable value in the billions. In this episode, he breaks down how to better communicate directly, driving revenue, and why most consultants are losing deals before they even realize it. Welcome, Andy.
Hey, John.
Tell us about yourself.
So as you say, I'm a consultant. I help large companies sell more and communicate better. Been doing this for many years. I'm very happy with the success that I've had, but more so I'm happy with the success my clients have had.
Okay. And I understand you're UK Sales Trainer of the Year.
Yeah, that was a nice one. Yeah, so there's an award in the UK which is given out every year. One of my customers very kindly nominated me for it, and yeah, that was great. And when I won that was at the same time as my book was number one on Amazon. So you know when you have a good day, that was a good day. We like that.
That is a good day. Speaking about your book, you have 3 best-selling books, including The Jelly Effect, How to Make Your Communication Stick. Can you tell us about the books?
Yeah, sure. So the reason I wrote them is you often see in corporate land communication which is not very good. You know, we've all seen presentations which were boring. We've all been to meetings and thought, well, that's an hour of my life I won't get back. And we've certainly seen salespeople mess things up. And so what I wanted to do is I wanted to make it nice and easy to give people a step-by-step guide to communicating better. And so the first book about the jelly effect, the analogy really is that how most people communicate, it's like they get a bucket of jelly or jello, and they throw it at the audience and they hope that some of it sticks. And that's not very nice for the audience. They got loads of jelly that they didn't want, and the bit that stuck wasn't very nice anyway. So the whole thrust of the book is how do you find out what the other person's interested in, talk only about that, and not deluge them with this information they don't care about.
Okay. I was reading your bio, and I saw something that was very fascinating to me. It said that your insight and passion stem from the fact that your mother is blind, giving you a lifetime experience communicating from someone else's point of view. Can you elaborate on that? That's very interesting.
Yeah, I'd be pleased to. So my mum is epic. I love her to bits. She's very, very clever. She was, in the UK, she was the second blind female lawyer ever, right?
Wow.
In the whole history of law in the UK. So she's very, very clever, and she doesn't see. So when I was a child learning how to speak, the person who taught me to speak was my mother, and she can't see. So from the earliest age, I was always interested in how to communicate from the other person's point of view. So how you communicate with a blind person is different than how you communicate with a sighted person, obviously. And then what I found was as I got older, I just became passionately interested in and hopefully became very skilled at explaining things to people who don't see the world the way that I do. Now, when you work in sales, customers don't see the world the way you do. When you are a leader communicating to your team about your wonderful new strategy, you might think it's brilliant, but your team just think, this sounds like hard work to me. So a lot of people don't truly know how to go into the other person's shoes. Well, I do, and I think that's mainly because of my wonderful mum who's given me these skills.
That's interesting. You started as a chartered accountant before moving into communication and sales. What triggered that shift into consulting?
A terrible presentation by a bank. So what happened, John, in the accountancy or the CPA world where I used to work, you often had to go to these presentations by big banks. And we went to one. It was a beautiful, ornate, sort of English, old world, beautiful architecture place, very expensive to hire. And the bank had done a presentation to about 100 accountants and attorneys and solicitors and so on. And it was really boring, John. The whole presentation was really boring. And I don't say this with any joy. It was really boring, you know? And I just thought, why has this bank hired this really expensive, beautiful place, given us all this beautiful food and wine, and just bored everybody for 45 minutes straight? And I went home and I thought, there must be a better way than this. And then I went to 2 days later, John, I went to another presentation by another bank, and that was worse. And it suddenly hit me, all this stuff which comes naturally to me because of my blind mum and all the research I've done into how people receive information and so on. Like, most people don't know it. You know, they just don't. So you know how what you know you think is normal?
They take
Well,
it
it
for granted.
suddenly realised that that bank's presentation was normal.
Right.
And I knew things they didn't know. And that's where it started, really.
Okay, and so what did you do? You went back to the bank and said, listen, I can make it better?
No, not quite. It was about 6 months before I got to that level. But what I did was I thought, how can I help people? How can I set myself up to help people? I'd never really grown up wanting to be a consultant or a coach. You know, some people say, when I was 5 years old, I always knew. It wasn't any of that at all. You know, I just didn't really know how to set my own business up, and I had to think about it, and I had to ask clever people. But then I did get started a few months after that. And then probably about a year or two, when I'd started having some success, I did actually go back to that bank and say, I'd like to help you for free, actually. Feel free to say no. But I was so grateful to them because they'd given me this wonderful new career, if you like.
Got you. Okay. What specific problem are you helping your clients solve when it comes to communication and sales? And why does solving that matter to you so personally?
Okay, so we'll do the what problem we're solving first. Basically, well, you know, any motivation is a happy or sad. So happy, people want to be winning more sales or communicating with more impact, or they think, I know I'm 95% there, but I want to be 100. So sometimes it's happy, but usually it's sad. People ring up, I've recently lost a sales presentation. We just lost a big customer. We're struggling to get in front of decision makers. Or from a communication point of view, the leadership team is not good at communicating strategy. Our employees are disengaged. You know, so that's the sort of reason people get in contact, either because they want to be more happy or less sad. Yeah. And so the thing that I do is basically help sales go up and or help communication work. Now, why do I have such passion for it? I mean, I don't want to be a guy who carries on banging on about his mum, but this has been so hardwired into me, John. So when I was a 7-year-old boy, you know, I might see someone explain something to my mum and she didn't quite understand it. Even though this person was trying to be nice to the blind person, mum didn't understand it, so she felt uncomfortable, and the guy who was speaking felt uncomfortable. And I remember, you know, as a 7-year-old boy thinking, oh, if you just had said it like that, then both you and my mum would have been happy. And I think it's the same thing with salespeople now. Think, oh, if you just had said it like that, both you and the customer would have been happy.
That's interesting. That's very fascinating. Wow. Yeah. What are your ideal clients today?
Well, ideal clients are, I mean, I'm very lucky, John. I've been doing this for a long time, so I don't really need to work anymore, but I do it because I love it. So first and foremost, I want someone who needs the skills I have. So they want more sales or communication to have more impact. But secondly, it's got to be somebody that I like. And thirdly, I like dealing with big stuff, you know, like big companies or leaders who've got big people, or a salesperson who's got a big target they need to hit. Or if I'm speaking at a conference, a big audience. And it's not an ego thing. I only like big things. Look at me. I just think it's the best way I can give a huge return on investment for my customers if they invest in me and the return I'm giving them is a big thing.
You've built a strong global reputation. How do clients typically find you? And what's worked best to track the right opportunities?
So customers normally come to me, I guess, through word of mouth and recommendation. There's a lot of that. I'm not very good at speaking to or having the motivation to speak to strangers. I'm not someone who will cold call or send out emails to people I don't know. A lot of people do. I don't tend to do that. what I tend to do is I find, John, that warm beats cold. So I find someone who is warm towards me. And so for existing customers, I might say, how else can I help you? Or I might say, who else do you know who would also benefit from what I do? Or let's say I see someone on LinkedIn who I'd like to speak to. What I'll do is I'll have a look at mutual connections, and that's people who are both connected to me and this person I want to meet. And I'll go to the mutual connection who's warm, and I'll say, would you mind introducing me? So it's a little bit, I've been doing it for a long time, and people have read the books or they've seen me on stage or whatever. But if I'm going to proactively do it, I go where it's warm.
What's your view on podcasting as a marketing tool for consultants?
Brilliant. Yeah, really love it. It's great to host it, and it's great, of course, to be on one. Thank you for inviting me. It's a great tool. I love it. One of the things I do in my spare time, I like going on my bike, and I like just putting headphones in and listening to a podcast as I cycle round where I live. It's such a easy way to get information. I know we're all really busy and everyone says we don't have time for anything, but your podcasts are great because you can often listen, while you're doing something else. Yeah. So when you're on your bike or when you're doing the washing up or you're, driving somewhere or something. And I just love the accessibility for customers. Whereas something like YouTube, it's great, but you need to sit and watch it. Podcast is really easy just to listen to.
Have you hosted as well?
No, I haven't. I thought of doing that a bit ago, and then this sounds terrible. I just couldn't be bothered. So I really appreciate you doing this. Thank you. So I tend to get invited to them rather than host.
Okay. You emphasize value over price. How do you personally structure your sales conversations so clients clearly see the value before the price ever comes up?
Okay, great question. So I'm going to describe this in 2 words and I'll give you a bit more detail. So my golden rule with selling, John, is afters early. And what I mean by that is you use the word value, I use the word afters. In other words, the value a customer gets is what happens after you've done the work. Yep. So value and afters means the same thing. So I always want to talk about the afters or the value early. So when I'm going to meet someone and they say, Andy, how much do you charge? I always say, well, I don't know. It depends what you want me to do. And they go, no, I just need to understand the day rate. I say, well, I don't really have day rates because I just don't know. Can we just talk about the impact you want? What do you want to happen after our work together? Like, what are you looking to see that you're not seeing at the minute? How will you know you're getting it? What's it worth to you if you can't? So I refuse to talk about price early on. And the analogy I use here, John, it's like if you went to a restaurant and someone said to the waiter, how much is your food? I would expect the waiter to say, I don't know. It depends what you want to eat. So why don't you tell me what food you want and then I'll tell you the price? So it's exactly the same thing. Andy, how much do you charge? I don't know. It depends what you want to eat with me. So let's talk about... So I remember recently I was speaking to someone who had a conference and the conference was taking place on the Wednesday. And so she was asking, what's your speaker fee? I said, I don't know. It depends what you want me to do. And she said, what topic would you talk about on the Wednesday? I said, I don't know. It depends what you want your audience to do on the Thursday. In other words, afters. So can we talk about that? So what we did, John, is we had a really good, rich 15, 20-minute conversation about what she just wished her salespeople would do on the Thursday and then the Friday and going into next week. And then I said, how long would you like this improvement to last? Is it just Thursday and Friday? Or are you looking for permanent change? And he said, well, that's the holy grail, isn't it? Permanent change. So I said, okay, well, I can help you with that, but you'll need more than a conference. You'll need some follow-up to help turn these things into habits. And so can you hear from this conversation? It's what do you want to happen after I finish? What do you want to happen? How long do you want that value to last? So by the time we'd ended up finishing that part of the conversation, when I then went to tell her my price, she was looking at the price in context of all these afters and the longevity of the afters, which means my price now looks good value for money. But if I'd said to start with, it's going to be $10,000, straight away she might have said, well, I know someone who's $9,000, so I'm not interested. Sorry, go on.
So how much listening do you have to do before you do a proposal then?
Oh, loads. I always want to know where the customer wants to be after me. I want to know what value they want it to bring them. I want to talk about different routes I can get them. there. And then when I've done it, ideally, I want to say the words good news. And so what I say then is, listening to what you're saying here, I've got some good news for you. I think there's two different ways we could approach this. We could do way X. That would have a price of about this. Or if you want, we could also this, way Y, and that would have a price of this. Which would you prefer we do? So I'm offering options. It's a bit like if you want children to go to bed. You don't say, do you want to go to bed at 8 o'clock? Because they go, no. But you say, hey kids, good news! Tonight you can go to bed at 8 o'clock or 10 past 8. Which do you prefer? And it's hard for them to say no when you give them a choice, right? Give them options. Okay. So that's always a thing. Afters early, find the value, talk about how I'll deliver it so they see how enormous the value is. And then I'll say, good news, I think there's two ways we could do this, X or Y. Which do you think will be better?
How do you retain clients over time?
Well, a number of ways, really. And one of them is provide immense value. That is the first thing you must do. I think sometimes people try and get the next sale before they've delivered afters with the first sale. So provide afters all you can. And then what I do then is when we're coming towards the end of a project, I will always say things like, what do you think we should do next? And if I say, what do you think we should do next? They will either say, I think we could do, in which case that's how you get the next knock on. Or they'll say, I don't know. So if I say, what do you think we should do next? I don't wait till the last day. I might go with a month or two to go, John. So you always want to give a bit of lead time. What do you want to do next? If they know what they want me to do, cool. If they say they don't know, I say, well, when I've worked with other companies, there are 2 or 3 things that they've chosen to do with me next. Would you find it interesting if I shared with you what they were? Now, of course, everyone says yes to that, right? Because people are curious. They're nosy. So if I say, everybody else who's got to this stage, there's 2 or 3 things they've chosen. Would you like to hear what they are? Everyone says yes. And I say, well, we could do this, or we could do this, we could do this. Which of those do you think might be most useful to you? And of course, all these things, John, they can say, no, I think we're good. That's fine. And that is fine. I don't want anyone to work with me if I or they don't want us to. But that's my preferred way to do it. 1 or 2 months to go. What do you want to do next? And if they don't know, give them some options.
Do you have a case study of maybe one little consultant client that you had that was a great success story?
Yeah, well, I've got lots of them, but I'll do one of them. One of them, I was working with a bank, not the same bank that I was talking about before. And I helped them with a multi-billion-pound deal, which at the time was one of their largest ever. And it was cool, right? Because when we first spoke, I said that I wanted to help them if that's what they wanted. And they said, well, let me just run through our sales presentation for you, Andy, and you can give us some feedback. And I said, okay, well, before we do that, can I just ask you a question? If another bank did a really good presentation and you did your really good presentation, do you think that you are the customer's best choice? Really? Or could other banks do a pretty good job as well? And they said, oh, I think other banks could go. I said, so really, is it going to come down to how you perform on the day? And they said, yeah, it probably is. And I said, in that case, I don't want to see your presentation yet. Because if you can't convince yourselves you're the customer's best option, there's no way you can convince them. So why do I want to see a presentation where you're going, we think we might be best? So what we did is we did lots of coaching as to how they could tell their story, how they could differentiate themselves, how they could structure the messaging, how they could preempt and remove objections, blah, blah, blah. Then we rewrote the presentation and then we just coached them until they nailed it. But it all stemmed from they had an important presentation to give and the end result was they won it and it was worth billions, but we did have to reconstruct it.
Do you ever get stuck as a consultant? Any obstacles or challenges that can confound you?
Oh, yeah. I mean, of course, there are things that people can say which surprise you, or you, no matter how well prepared you are, that people can throw things at you. And my favorite thing is when it's really clear either way. So when I'm talking to a potential client, if it's really clear I can help them, I love that because I know we'll have a rich conversation. We may choose to work together, we may not, but it'll be a good conversation. And I also know the other end, if I can't help them, that also will be a good conversation, because if I can't, I know I'm pretty well connected. I know lots of other people and say, I don't think I'm your guy, but you might want to speak to John because he's really good at this. Yeah. So I love that. The time when it can most confound you, if it's in the murky middle where you're not quite sure if you can help them or not. Yeah. And
Right.
so then for your own value and for their value, it's just important to keep on asking and just thinking about it and so on. But yeah, of course, things can always come up which can confound you. But then don't worry about it. Never ever tell a lie. Buy yourself some time and say, you're giving me plenty to reflect on here. Let me reflect on this. Let me see what I've done with other companies that's worked for them. Let me see if I can find anything useful. Then we can have another call. And I quite like that, John, because it buys me time. So even if I'm confounded, doesn't matter, because it buys me time to go and think about it, and then we can come back.
Looking ahead, where do you see the biggest opportunity for improving communication and sales performance over the next few years?
Well, I think something that's going to become more and more key is the ability to really connect with people. We're seeing more and more of this AI. Some of it's good, but people are just basically abdicating responsibility to AI sometimes. And so it's good and it has its merits, of course it does, but also sometimes we're beginning to lose that human connection and the ability to connect with someone. It's always been important, but it really is now. It's like when lockdown started with COVID, or as my children call it, stupid lockdown. So when stupid lockdown started, and before COVID, I always spoken at conferences and done face-to-face stuff. So during COVID, that was the end of my career, right? So I would go and speak to customers, and they would say, the world is changing. We can't do face-to-face events anymore. So, Andy, we can't work with you because there's no face-to-face. And I had to say, no, you need me more now than ever before, because the world is changing and you need to be able to communicate with people who can't see you face-to-face. Might I remind you about my mother? I know a lot about when people can't see you face-to-face. So why am I using that analogy? Because when COVID started, people thought it's all changed now. The old rules don't apply, and therefore but the thing that mattered was you had to be innovative and communicate in a different way. There is more and more stuff that's coming out, whether it's AI or there's stuff which isn't necessarily true. It certainly isn't researched very well. And the ability to connect on a human level with stuff which is correct and stuff that has been properly researched and all that stuff, that will never go away.
Andy, great talk. If people want to find out more about you and see what you do, where should they go?
Well, wherever they like, really, just put my name in Google, Andy Bounds, Bounds. But the easiest thing might just be on LinkedIn. I always reply to everything. It's always me. It's not a colleague, and it's certainly not AI. So if anyone has any follow-up questions from this, or they want to ask me any questions about it, probably LinkedIn's the easiest.
Okay, we'll put all the links in the description. Thank you so much for joining us on Consulting Leaders. I really enjoyed the conversation.
Yeah, me too. Thanks, John. All the best.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of the Principal Podcast. We hope you learned valuable strategies to grow your firm and take your business to the next level. Make sure to subscribe and leave us a review wherever you're listening to this show so you never miss an episode. To apply and be a guest on the show, click the link in the description. See you next time.